Welcome to the Lord Rexworth Podcast, where we embark on a transformative journey to set your mind and spirit on the right path. I'm Lord Rexworth. Join me from Castle Rexworth as we engage in insightful conversations with a diverse range of guests, including VTubers, content creators, and thought leaders. Delve into the realms of creativity, inspiration, and self-discovery as we explore the stories and perspectives that shape the digital landscape. And today, I'm joined by my colleague at Project Estadia, a fellow mod, Nobu Volpe. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone.
Good to see you.
Volpe.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Nobu. For those of you, people know me, but they don't necessarily know you. And I think everybody would be very interested to get to know you just a little bit better.
Why, of course. My name is Nobu. Full name Nobuyuki Volpe, but you can call me Nobu. And I've currently been streaming since April of last year. It's been a great journey ever since. And I am one of the co-leaders alongside Celeste Altair of Project Estadia. Ever so happy to have founded that.
Yes.
And we've amassed quite the team of amazing individuals.
Yes, indeed we have, including myself, including so many great talents. Which, if you haven't, we'll put a link into the show description here, where you can follow Project Estadia on Twitter. Website is currently under development, but that is coming soon. So, talked about Project Estadia. You've been VTubing since, you said, April of last year. How'd you get into it, and what sort of content do you specialize in?
It's quite funny actually, because I've actually always wanted to VTube for the past, I want to say, almost 2-3 years now. But
Wow.
with originally, I was in school and college and everything, and it just wasn't feasible at the time. Until just about recently, with last April, I finally decided, you know what, we're gonna take the full dive and go all in, and see what becomes of it.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And here you are. I mean, could you have imagined from April last year to where we are now at the beginning of 2024, when we're recording this, did you have any idea, any sort of inkling, a gut feeling that, hey, this is where I'm going to be nearly a year from now?
I had zero thought that it would ever get this far. I'll be honest. I just wanted to do it because it's always something I wanted to try and just have fun, and it just also ended up working out. So I mean, I guess I'll take the win where I can get it.
Yeah, no, and that's to your credit that you kind of have sort of a go with the flow type attitude, and maybe a bit of hoping for the best, but that sort of that joyous energy has, I think, served you well and helped to carry you thus far.
Yeah, it has. I like to think of things in a positive outlook. That things will just, no matter how difficult the journey may be, things will just always work out.
Same here. Same here. I did remark around, I think it was probably the time, this may have been shortly before I joined Project Estadia, but I myself did remark to some people, it's like, I have no idea where I'm going to be or what it is I'm going to be doing a year from now. But I had this feeling deep down within my spirit and in my gut that everything is going to be all right. And I said, I almost have to, because I shudder to think about the alternative. But really, it's not even a desire or even a want to think about that sort of thing. Just because I prefer to focus on the positive myself. And so I love that energy that you bring to Project Estadia, and I certainly hope that I bring that same level of energy. And I think that's what helps you and I mesh well together as friends and as colleagues, is that we both kind of have that quiet, positive energy that we bring to everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So as far as the content that you create, you're kind of a variety streamer, same as me.
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, I'm a variety streamer. I haven't really niched down yet, though.
Hmm.
I guess I do very clearly have my preferences with the games I play.
Okay, what do you prefer?
Um, Usually I tend to stick to mostly MOBAs and horror games, but I do mesh out. I do branch out from those two things as well.
No, you are a big League of Legends fan, and
I
quite the avid
am.
game player.
It's been both a blessing and a curse ever since I started playing that game.
Now, I do want to get this on sort of on the record, as it were. Why is it that it's a blessing and a curse? I mean, why is it from your perspective? Why would you say that?
So League is one of those games where it's very, very highly competitive. And that leads to a multitude of things. Um, the first of which being, the community can tend to be very, very toxic.
Oh my.
Yeah. A lot of people I've tried to get into League have said they don't want to play it specifically because of the community.
Oh goodness.
Yeah, it's not too hard to get around though. It's very easy. They've made it very easy to just mute people and deny them that form of like toxicity.
Yeah, don't give them the satisfaction. And so
Yeah, exactly. You can just mute people mid game, report people mid game, and stuff like that. It's
yeah. So you find yourself doing that quite a bit, or is that sort of kind of your go-to?
You'd be surprised, not as often as one would think. It's
Okay.
like the game is known for having a toxic community, and there definitely are quite a few people. But usually in a given game, like if anything, like you maybe have like one person being toxic.
Yeah, there's
It's not
always
like
one bad apple.
yeah, exactly. It's but like very rarely do you find just a full lobby of toxicity.
Right. I suppose in the earlier days maybe, but not so much anymore.
Yeah. I guess it kind of lends to that though, because it is a very competitive team-based game. So there's a lot of like heated emotions that can go on in the middle of a match.
Interesting. I mean, hey, sounds like fun, and certainly it's one of the games that you stream. Now, is there anything you mentioned that you're wanting to sort of niche down? Do you have any sort of ideas about what you would want to niche down into? Anything you sort of narrowed down?
I'm floating a few options. I definitely think that I've always been fond of like voice acting and stuff like that. So I think like doing some maybe not like full on ASMR, but at least like maybe some like some scripts or something from time to time would be fun. At least especially more for my YouTube channel. And we'll get more to that on why that's important on stuff like that later.
Yes. Definitely.
But yes, I do very much have a fondness for like voice acting and stuff like that, and I would like to channel that into like scripts and stuff like that to both get practice and to niche down on something.
I'm gonna have to introduce you to some of the circles I've been running around with as of late. Because
that would be lovely.
I've been doing that here and there. I mean, just recently had the Catalyst Blind Faith live performance. Absolute blast. I mean, and performance just blew everyone away. So and I knew I was going to enjoy it, but I didn't quite anticipate how much of a charge I was going to be getting out of it. And I think you would probably feel the same way. I should love to see to have you experience that same sort of feeling of the live performance. Kind of harkens back to like the old days of live performances for radio dramas and the like. And there's something rather magical about all of that.
There really is.
Yeah. No, I would love to see that for you, Nobu. Absolutely. We'll get on that. But one of the things that I wanted to bring you on here was you had some things that you wanted to talk about with I guess sort of the future trends, the coming trends for the year for 2024, and how to make the trend your friend is I guess we can call that the show title. And let's just go ahead and start with some things that were seen developing this year, and how we can make that, how perhaps a small streamer or a content creator or a freshly minted VTuber can make that work for them.
Oh
One of the
yes.
one of the first things that we had been discussing in kind of the pre-show countdown was algorithms for the various apps. Um, your Twitters, your TikToks, your YouTubes, and the like. Um, in this coming year for 2024, the first question I have for you is, what changes can we expect with that? And I mean, the one thing that a lot of people are dreading is how much harder are they going to make things for small streamers?
In terms of Twitter, actually, there's not too much has changed, and I don't believe much is changing currently, at least for the time being. But the algorithm is quite, I would say, complex, but not hidden, unlike other platforms. Like we always joke about YouTube and TikTok and other platforms having this like, you know, overarching like god complex algorithm that determines the fate of all content creators.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just this completely enigmatic machine thinking thing, effectively, that just decides who becomes viral and who doesn't.
Interesting.
But when it comes to Twitter, it's actually, surprisingly enough, significantly more transparent with how its algorithm works.
That's thanks in large part to the efforts of Mr. Musk.
Yeah, one of the few good things I would say that he's actually pulled off is making that more accessible to the public.
Yeah. And with it becoming more accessible, that means it's possible to, I say this with air quotes, quote unquote, hack the algorithm and make it work for you, to make the trend your friend. Um, the next question, logically, would be, how do you do that? How do you make trends work for you? And what are
Um,
the kind of trends that are being noticed or that you're noticing?
yes. Well, so there's a variety of things with Twitter on how it actually functions to decide whether your tweets are going to be big or not. Um, and it's an interesting ranking algorithm that effectively takes everything about your profile and puts you on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 100. I mean, my bad.
Hmm.
And it's effectively that effectively becomes your, so to say, Twitter credit score.
Oh, that sounds ominous. Sort of like the social
It,
credit
it
score.
really, in a way, it kind of is. Um, but effectively, it's a way for the algorithm to systematically determine your reputation on Twitter. And the calculations for this aren't necessarily given to the public, but you can kind of give, like, they kind of made at the very least the weights of different things accessible.
Okay. So what do they weight? Let's kind of break those down. What are they really looking for when calculating that?
So there's a variety of things. Well, um, and this is probably the most, one of the more, I would say, what's the word? English isn't my first language, so bear with me for a second.
That's all right.
Um, um, controversial. Yes, that's it. One of the
Okay.
more controversial ones is Twitter Blue and the whole idea of monetizing Twitter.
Mm.
Um,
Which,
and
full disclosure, I
effectively,
have that, by the way. I do have Twitter
yes,
Blue. I
same.
subscribe. Yeah, we both do.
Um, but interestingly enough, um, specifically, so if you're a Twitter Blue subscriber, you get a ×4 boost in the algorithm
Oh, lovely.
if you're in the same network as the author of like a tweet, let's say, and a ×2 boost if you're not. So let's say you're posting stuff about VTubers and you're using a lot of VTuber hashtags.
Hmm.
Well, then within the VTuber community, your post will get a ×4 multiplier, and outside the VTuber community, it will be ×2.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So a little bit of a pay to play type scheme
In
going
in
on.
essence, yes, there is a bit of pay to play when it comes to Twitter. Unfortunately,
But I
I
mean,
dislike the idea of that quite a bit, but it is an
yeah,
unfortunate fact of it.
it can leave a sour taste in people's mouth, but unfortunately, I mean, at the end of the day, they are a business. They've got to make money somehow, and
Yeah.
it's one of those things where those server farms are just not going to pay for themselves.
Yes, and while it's not necessarily like while it is kind of like a paid thing, it's not necessarily pay to win per se.
Right.
Because I mean, the times 4 boost is nice, but obviously that doesn't mean that without that times 4 boost, your tweets can't enjoy high viewer counts.
Yes. You still have to have something interesting to say.
Yeah, of course. Like regardless of the blue check mark or not, like 4 times 0 is still 0. If your content isn't quality content, then the multiplier won't do anything to help you.
Yes. So you say something that's uninteresting or even worse, colossally stupid, then, that means just more people are going to ignore you, or worse, more people may try to cancel you.
Exactly. And we'll get to that because that's actually really bad in the algorithm's eyes. It's not necessarily career ending, but it can severely cripple your account.
Yeah, to where you kind of have to shut it down and start over from scratch.
If it gets bad enough, potentially.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, it'll take a while to rebuild it.
Right. Now, something I have heard, and I do want to run this by you, or maybe it may have been you who told me this, Nobu, a while back, that there's a certain balance to followers versus following that one has to maintain, where you can't be following more people than who follow you. Otherwise, stuff starts to get kind of buried in the mix of everything else on people's timelines. Any truth to that?
There is kind of a follower to following thing. Twitter does put it's not the most important thing, but it does have an effect on your profile. Twitter will look positively on accounts with a high ratio of following to followed. So if you have significantly more people following you as opposed to people you're following, according to the Twitter algorithm, that's seen as a good thing. Yes.
Okay.
Whereas if you have, and the reverse is also kind of true. It's not necessarily always the case, but if you have significantly more people followed as opposed to people following your account, it's not 100% likely to happen, but you're more likely to be seen as like a bot by the algorithm, dependent on like what your actions are.
Okay. And bots do seem to be still a rather prevalent issue with Twitter.
And with that comes the increased likelihood of like potential shadow bans and stuff like that.
Okay. Right. So, I mean, how would somebody avoid running afoul of such shadow bans and whatnot? I mean, what do you have to do?
And that's the thing. There isn't really an answer to that. The algorithm kind of just makes decisions, and something that could be completely innocent could just get you shadow banned for absolutely no reason. And there's not really much you can do.
Sort of sounds like bureaucracy.
Just having that positive. Oh yes, exactly. And having that positive ratio doesn't really necessarily protect you. It just decreases your chances.
Okay. So, now another thing, the hashtag versus keywords in trending. I mean, which is more effective these days?
Hashtags are still very, very important. They are very relevant. Because they help effectively filter your content towards the right audience, right? Effective use of hashtags will make sure that the people you want to see your content and who will actually want to engage with your content and retweet it are the ones who are going to see it.
Okay.
Right? Like, if I post just coffee and then I hashtag coffee, it's like, yeah, okay, people with coffee will see it, but like, there's zero ties to like me being a VTuber, so they might not actually want to continue looking at my content past that. Or they might just, effectively, it's just you want hashtags to be relevant to what you're trying to say. That way it's being filtered towards the correct audience.
a picture of the Him Torton's coffee cup can only get you so far.
Yeah, I still have to
Running
post
joke
that.
with
It's gonna be
us,
great.
everybody.
Oh yes, no, it'll be public eventually because it's majestic.
That was really good, I must say. That was clever. Um, all right. Oh, I did notice that, and we're starting to see this in our circle with VTubers, of more simulcasts going out to Twitter. Twitter's getting into. I mean, they've got the Spaces, which is an audio only type presentation. You've
Hmm.
got some content creators exclusively doing things. I guess signing exclusive deals with Twitter or X to upload video content strictly to that website and to their followers. You've got, I have noticed, subscription-based services with some accounts being made available. And then there's, I think the big thing with VTubers, though, is the ability now to simulcast onto Twitter, along with the usual platforms of like Twitch or YouTube.
Yes, that mostly became. I think that became more prevalent because of the changes to Twitch's um in terms regarding multi streaming. Because before that, people just streamed to Twitch because it was, at the end of the day, it's still one of the better ones in terms of viewer interactivity and stuff like that
Yes.
regarding live programming, at least.
Yes.
Um, but Twitter and YouTube obviously have their own benefits as well. So the fact that now we can actually multi-stream definitely opens the doors to that.
Yes, quite so. And with the most recent generations of streaming software, everything from OBS to Streamlabs, um, and even services like Restream, it makes it even easier than ever to just flip a switch, hit the go live button, and
And
hey
suddenly you're live on
presto,
all three platforms. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
3, 4, sometimes even as many as 5 platforms if you've got the bandwidth for that.
Hmm.
That
And
is
actually, that's what's lovely. So that's the thing. So right. So if you're multi-streaming from OBS, you don't technically need programs like Restream.
mm,
But what Restream does is it like kind of like filters everything through a single stream, and then uses their bandwidth to multi-stream. So, which is why they charge a fee.
I see.
So that way you can output to, let's say, 3, 4, even 5 different um, websites, but you're only outputting the bandwidth as if you were streaming to one.
Okay, so and I'm hearing the way you describe this, and I'm thinking back to my days in radio and television, when we had what would be like uh, pooled media feeds that you could grab, either audio or video from one central camera microphone. And I mean, they do that with like the White House in Washington, or number 10 in London. Anytime there's any
Hmm.
sort of important governmental, official type broadcast that needs to be made, or a statement to the press. That's usually how that gets handled. Um, so yeah, no, it sounds like it's just been taking that same concept and applying it to individual simulcasts, which is brilliant.
Yeah, in essence, it's a very it is good because it opens the doors to people that maybe don't have the bandwidth to
Hmm.
stream to multiple platforms at the same time, but they have that extra $20 a month to maybe get the subscription for Restream to have
Yeah,
that option to do so.
yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, I know in the United States, um, fiber internet providing like the fastest speeds that are presently available to most consumers is still, it's patchy in its application. It's not available everywhere. I think one of the big companies is AT&T that's
Hmm.
leading the charge on getting that installed in. They do it in the new neighborhoods that are being constructed all around the country, but yeah, it's one of those things that's not really available everywhere. Google Fiber's another big one, but that's still being, that's kind of hit and miss, and not available everywhere.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, Restream, good service in the meantime until such day comes that that type of high levels of bandwidth are available to everyone. So yeah, that's fantastic. Do we want? Was there anything you wanted to cover with Twitter? Do we want to move over to TikTok and YouTube?
We could. So that's like the overarching idea of the Twitter algorithm, right? Is, of course, the blue subscription is obviously important, and the whole idea of Twitter credit. But on that topic, though,
Yes.
Twitter credit is kind of built up by your tweets, and your tweets are ranked specifically on various like things, effectively, that the system deems either positive or negative.
Okay.
So stuff like likes and retweets of your tweet will increase the weight of your tweet and how much, and how many people will actually get to see your tweet going forward.
Oh.
And then it kind of builds up from there. So Twitter puts a very, very heavy focus on interactivity. So if you have a tweet that gets people to actually click on your tweet, and better yet, to redirect them from that tweet to your profile, that will significantly increase the weight of your tweet, as will comments.
Okay. Likes, retweets, and comments. Big
Yes,
way to...
specifically comments are probably the most significant booster of tweet weight. So let's say if every like increased the weight of your tweet by 0.5, I believe the report I had read stated that specifically comments on your tweet, would increase the weight by 27 relative to 0.5 from just a like.
Interesting. Now, what about quote retweets? Where do those fall?
I believe quote retweets are weighted the same as regular retweets, and they're about 1. So they weigh more than likes, but not as much as comments.
Ah, I see. Okay. So
which I find interesting.
Yeah, kind of in the middle.
In a way, it's not so bad, because then it kind of builds from that, right? So quote retweets are interesting in that while the quote retweet itself is only worth, let's say, a weight of 1, then you also factor in the weight of that new tweet that was made, right? Because now that new tweet is also going to get its own likes and retweets that are going to redirect the traffic back to your original tweet.
Okay.
We tweets. We.
Yeah.
We tweets.
I didn't want to say anything, but I was just like, what? No, that's
sorry, that's my
cute.
accent coming through when I get really into things. Anyways.
Yes. Oui on the we tweets.
Oui. Anyways. Pardonnez-moi, le français, ça rentre dans mon anglais un peu, des fois. Anyways.
French being the first language of our dear Nobu here. Right, we'll get to more Twitter twattery in just a moment, but shall we move over to TikTok and YouTube? Which one do you want to move over to next?
They're both kind of interesting. I guess we could start with YouTube.
Okay.
But YouTube's is pretty simple though, because despite the popular opinion that the YouTube algorithm just dislikes everyone equally, there are things that it specifically looks for.
Oh.
So YouTube will try to push videos towards the audience it thinks will like your content. So let's say you're constantly posting stuff with VTuber hashtags and hashtags for specific games, right?
Yeah.
Well, now the algorithm will begin associating you with those hashtags, and it'll decide eventually. It'll come to the realization that, oh, that's what this person's niche is. They're posting lots of, let's say, Honkai videos, right? And so it'll start pushing your content towards people who watch a lot of Honkai videos. Now, that's not necessarily to say it's going to push them very hard, because that comes to like the second half of how it works. So now it's like, okay, now the algorithm knows that you're focusing on this kind of content, so it'll start focusing your audience. Now the onus falls on you in order to make quality content that audience will want to engage with.
Interesting.
And by engagement, I mean, I guess in a way, the algorithm specifically views, obviously the like to dislike ratio is one thing, but also the number of comments, and the number of comments, the percentage of your video that was actually viewed, and the ratio of impressions to actual views.
Right.
So
Which YouTube can keep track of all that stuff. They
very,
can tell
very
when
easily,
when
yes.
you click away. Okay.
Well, so like let's say, so an impression would be, let's say I'm scrolling, I searched for Honkai builds, right? And now I see the thumbnail for your video as one of the videos on that list of hundreds of other videos on Honkai builds.
Yeah.
So anyways, I see your thumbnail and I decide, you know what? I want to watch the other video underneath yours. So I scroll past your video and I click on something else. That is an impression. So I've seen your content. I know it exists, but I decided not to click on it.
Oh.
So now that's 0 click, 1 impression. The algorithm sees that as no bueno.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
I see.
And of course, and then as those build up and that ratio gets lower and lower, the algorithm will eventually just decide to either kill the video or push it accordingly. It is. Yeah. It's very complicated. If you like, it's one of those things where you have to like actually sit down and stare at the analytics for like hours to actually pick up on patterns.
Yes, it's quite. It can get quite complex. So those of you who are listening to this podcast after the fact, we've got our chat here. We record live on Twitch, and yeah, many of our chatters are remarking about how social media can be quite the complex thing. So one thing in particular, I think I found this incredibly helpful, but there are certain times of the day and of the week that if you are a content creator, you post content to YouTube, there are certain times of the day and week you should post your content. You should set it to post around that time.
Absolutely.
What are those times?
Now the thing with those times is they're very, very variable. They're different for everyone, and no one will have the exact same times. Because it depends on, well, your viewers, right?
Right.
And let's say my viewers, while maybe there might be some crossover if we always stream together and stuff like that, at the end of the day, my viewers might not necessarily all be the same as your viewers.
Fair.
And so the times that they're on, or the type of content they want to actually watch might not necessarily be entirely the same. And so the times of day with which I should post and what I should post might not also be the same.
I see. Okay. Generally speaking, are there like certain safe times where it's like, hey, if you post this now, you've got a better chance of picking up more views than you normally would just posting it at random any old time of week?
Oh yes, absolutely. But let me actually see if I can pull something up for that actually on my end.
I had heard, various reports about certain times, maybe on like Saturday or Sunday evenings, though the actual hours may vary. But there are certain windows of time where it helps to where it does help to post within that range. You can have your content ready to go. You can schedule it to post during those windows, and it's not a guarantee, of course, but you stand a fair chance of maybe picking up a few more of the just like the random views that normally are not your P1 demographics, your diehard fans who have all notifications enabled and whatnot.
I guess technically speaking, obviously times around work, like when people are at work, would be relatively poor times to actually post.
Right.
But I would say usually like after work times, like in the evening or early morning, or even
Okay.
around lunchtime sometimes, especially more on the weekends,
Hmm.
uh, are the times that I found quite a bit of success with.
Okay. So we would say then probably somewhere between like 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, maybe around 11 to 1 roughly for the lunch time, and then from, like 5 to 7 or 5 to 8 in the evening. It was generally
Yeah,
decent
exactly,
windows that you
exactly.
noticed. Okay. All right. Very good. Excellent.
And of course, you would cater the time zone specifically to like your target audience, right? If you're like 5 to 8 p.m. EST isn't necessarily the same as 5 to 8 p.m. GMT, let's say, right?
Yes. Or in
So
Pacific
of course,
time.
if you're going to be targeting people more in like Central Europe, your time zone you might adjust your times accordingly, depending
Yeah.
on where you want to aim, like where you want to pick up your viewers, right?
That's true. Yeah, middle of the day when people are working in North America, you might not get much out of them, but it might, for all you know, end up popping off in continental Europe or the UK or somewhere in Asia.
Yes, that's why I think the 11 to 12 o'clock time frame, well, at least for me in EST,
Hmm.
is the one I've had probably the most success with,
Oh,
because it's one of those time frames where, right, 11 EST is around 8 in the morning on the western coast, right? So
yeah,
pretty much everyone in North America is awake and not too busy, right? Because people on the East Coast are going on lunch break. People on the West Coast are waking up and probably having breakfast. And people in Europe are likely coming home from work and having supper.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
it's like it's been a good catch-all kind of time frame to post where like you can capture all as many time zones as possible.
That's true. That's a sort of thing that television and film executives couldn't even dream of, not even like 10, 20 years ago. Just incredible how far we've come.
Hmm.
Absolutely incredible. Um, Anything else on YouTube before we move over to TikTok?
I mean, I guess a short TLDR for YouTube would be um, keep your content as niched down as possible. Um, and remember to post at times where you know you'll be able to try and catch as much of an audience as possible. And the last thing would probably be shorts. Use shorts. They're very
Yes.
good.
Yes. They're surprisingly effective. Not only in, I, I notice as a YouTube, uh, just as somebody who uses the YouTube app on an almost daily basis just to watch content. Yeah, that's one of the first things that's going to pop up as a notification on your phone is the stuff for the shorts. And,
Yes. Oh, and actually, that brings up something else.
oh, all right.
Um, so another thing, we were talking about trends before.
Yes.
Um, when it comes to trends, especially on sites like YouTube, uh, the best success I've had in videos is very much a factor of the early bird gets the worm.
Ah.
So let's say you notice a trend, right?
Hmm.
Um, the faster you can onboard with that trend before other competition gets on board with it as well, the more likely your video is to get viral.
Okay.
And sometimes you can kind of predict when things are going to start trending, right? Like, for example, um, let me use Honkai Impact as an example, right?
All right.
Um, you know a character is coming up, and usually before they release the characters, they drop like this like really cool trailers and stuff like that, right? In your channel, you want to do reactions and like Honkai based content. Well, if you know a character is coming out and you know that video is going to be out at a select time, um, the closer you can get your own video out before anyone else has a chance to get theirs out, the better your video is likely to do.
Master the art of timing.
It is, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, right? If you've posted a video and there's only 3 other people who've posted a video by the time you got there, your chances of being seen are significantly higher than if you showed up when there's already 300 people who've posted.
Yes, and jumping up to the 50,000-foot view, I think that's an interesting way of thinking and remembering about success. Is that quite often it's your skills and practice meeting opportunity, or perhaps one's practiced skills and talents becoming in sync with the trends, tastes, and favor of the times. So that's something that's not just applies to content creation of VTubing, but most anything in life in general. So I think rather good way of looking at that.
Timing is key.
Yes, timing is always the key. And the great thing about creating YouTube Shorts, which this can be a rather fun challenge in and of itself, and an excellent way to sharpen one's skills as an editor, is that what you create for the YouTube Short, workflow-wise, instantly becomes something that's perfect for the format of TikTok.
Yes, and they're usually interchangeable, though there are certain differences I will get on once if we decide to talk about TikTok some more.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about it.
But so the YouTube community tends to be a bit less attention span missing than TikTok. So it's usually like having a video where the punchline, I guess so to say, is a little bit further along is usually a little bit more accepted on YouTube.
Okay. A good way of looking at it.
People are willing to stay on your video a little bit longer on YouTube than they are on TikTok. If YouTube, so if the rule on YouTube is have the gratification of your video be within the first 5 seconds, then TikTok is 2.
Oh my. That is short. That is...
Yeah, about 95% of TikTok videos have all the views drop off within the first 2 seconds of the video.
Oh my god. It's a miracle anyone can make it big over there.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
It's very much trying to get the attention span of millions of goldfish.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, how much different is the algorithm for TikTok compared to Twitter, YouTube, or anything else out there? I mean, how does that work?
So I know that the TikTok algorithm recently had a bit of a change. As of like a year ago, I would say, about, give or take. Before that, it was very, very easy to go big on TikTok. As long as you posted regularly and you were consistent and you had decently quality content, you were going to explode at some point. Eventually, the algorithm was going to be like, okay, you know what? Let's give this a shot and put you on the For You page.
Oh, wow.
The algorithm didn't really care what it was putting on the For You page. It would just put things at random, kind of thing. And then they kind of started to like actually build upon that and like specify it more.
I see.
So as it stands right now, the algorithm is very reliant on what your followers like, which is why your first few videos on TikTok, it's very important that you immediately establish your niche, or else it's going to be significantly harder to keep that niche. Well, to keep videos at high viewers beyond that.
You really have to know who you are and hit the ground running with TikTok, in other words.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Because your first few videos aren't going to be limited by what your followers like, because you have no followers. So it's just going to immediately push your videos to a wider audience to try and see, what bites effectively.
Interesting.
But once you've established that baseline audience, from then on, the algorithm will push your videos to that baseline audience first. And then if they like your video, then it'll push it to more people.
It still sounds like quite a narrow margin for error.
Very much so.
All right. Well, I mean, it is still possible to see some sort of success on TikTok. It just sounds as
Oh,
though
absolutely.
probably greater chances on YouTube and Twitter, perhaps.
Yes.
So,
TikTok definitely has its pros, and I mean, at base, TikTok will push videos to more people than YouTube normally will.
a bit more
So it's still good
generous.
to use, even if like you haven't hit the algorithm gold yet on TikTok. It's
Hmm.
still good to use because you're usually going to get more people regardless on TikTok.
Just makes me realize I probably need to get posting more of my short content on on TikTok and on YouTube for that matter. All right. Well, I want to circle back to Twitter and the general twattery, um, and what is going on over there? Yeah, I think is the big question that's on everyone's
Chaos,
mind. Yeah, it
as
seems like total
always has
chaos.
been.
Yeah. I mean, there was, I guess, sort of the good chaos for a while in the startup days with Jack Dorsey, and then later on he decided he wanted to live like a monk in a hut somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, and just sort of left the whole thing on autopilot as best he could, and just kind of got run by a bunch of committees and rogue actors and everything else until finally he just sold the thing over a series of tweets with Elon Musk, and yeah, now it's just it's I don't know, morphing into something strange, and
Yeah,
rumors abound with these sorts of things that oh, such and such service is not going to last for much longer. Oh, this one's bankrupt over here. They're running out of money. Um, I mean, is Twitter still the place for budding VTubers and content creators? There's something new popping up on the horizon
I
that we should
definitely believe
be
so. It's
okay.
it's definitely not the wondrous grounds it used to be. Even
Right.
then, it's always been just a cesspool of chaos, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
those glory days are over, I think.
Twitter has always been a very chaotic place.
Yes.
That hasn't changed. Um, but I think it's just there's been a bit of a push to monetize Twitter significantly more in the last year, as opposed to the air quotes free service it's always been before that.
Right. If it's free, you
Um,
are the product. That's the big spoiler alert there.
yeah, exactly.
Or your
Um,
data.
so hence why, um, a lot of there have been a lot of pushes to monetize Twitter. From a business perspective, I can kind of understand it because they're probably trying to not lose money.
Yes. That's the other nasty
But
little secret about a lot of these tech companies is that they are very much money losers. They tend to operate us at a significant loss for a long time, and then attempt to try and claw back a lot of that by, well, there was a there was an article, I think it was in Wired or somewhere, talking about the I'm having to censor this, the poopification of TikTok, but it generally applies with a lot of other services, Amazon, TikTok, YouTube, Google, everything, where they practically give everything away, and then they start clawing it back and making it just seem a little bit worse, and people just less happier with it as time goes on.
yeah, exactly. We've had like free period of Twitter for such a long time that I think we all got used to it. But Twitter
Yes, we
was
got
operating
spoiled.
at a loss for a long time.
Oh yes.
So it kind of makes sense that they had to do something, or we just wouldn't have Twitter. Period.
Hmm. Makes sense.
Um, but it can come off as a bit predatory to some people when you see how the monetization is offered.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what happens when the bean counters and the investment banks and merchant banks get involved with that sort of thing. Um, I mean, do you see anything else replacing it though? I mean, if not Twitter, where else do you go?
That's the thing. There's nothing quite like Twitter when you think about it, right? Yeah, of course we have TikTok, we have YouTube, right? That they're very video content first kind of programs, and they have their own like place to drop community posts and stuff like that.
Okay.
More so YouTube, right? With the whole thing of you can technically drop non-video posts as well on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, and that is
Um,
one thing I have noticed is that, and I've had to make this sort of adjustment myself with my own tweets, is that Twitter doesn't seem to like you posting anything that's not like an original video that you upload to their website, like a link to a Twitch feed or to a
yes.
YouTube.
Twitter has a thing against links to other sites. Twitter wants to keep you on Twitter.
Right.
And
Which
so
as you do
when
when
the
you're a
second
business.
exactly. So the second you put a link to another site, you can rest assured that tweet is getting deboosted.
Yeah. I did notice quite a significant difference when I just started saying, "Hey, using either the link emoji, like chain link emoji, or just saying, hey, Twitch in replies or something like that." Starting to get some better results with that, I've noticed.
Yes.
Yeah. So if there is a link to something external that you want to plug on your Twitter page, best to put that in the replies. And you can say that, in parentheses, hey, use the link emoji, because I don't think they even like you using the word link per se. That might be a keyword that the algorithm is trained to catch and then not push your tweet as aggressively anymore. But I have noticed when you get a bit clever about it and say, hey, check the replies for more info or whatever, that tends to get a bit more traction. So the algorithms can be hacked, as it were. It just, like I said, you have to get a bit clever about it.
Hmm.
Yeah, let's see. And not really anything else. I mean, I know that Instagram and Facebook and Meta for a while, they were trying something. Have you heard anything about that? I think it was something some type of modification with Instagram.
I know Instagram has been getting more and more popular recently. I haven't had a chance to really look into that as much as I would have liked yet, though. I plan on experimenting that significantly more after my re-debut.
Ah, yes, which that's coming soon. Stay tuned for that. We'll have links to all of Nobu's socials and pages and everything in the show description. Right. So let's turn more generally to tech then and new developments there. Anything on the horizon for 2024 that you think is worth people's attention, taking notice of?
Um, I have heard, though I can't really like I don't really have any real sources yet. This is more of like a hearing from a friend kind of thing.
Right.
So take whatever I say with a grain of salt on this, but I have
Of
heard that they're
course.
working on like um GPU-esque attachments for as like PC internals that are specifically designed for AI.
Okay. So
Um
a physical AI peripheral, almost like a graphics card, but that's
yes,
where your AI is housed.
because as it stands, like the current graphics card layout is the best thing for running AIs, but they aren't optimized for AIs, right? Because they're running everything else on your PC.
Yeah.
So let's say you want to run like a much more sophisticated AI. You need something powerful, something like a 4080 or 4090 graphics card, which are not cheap. I think the
No.
4090 is currently retailing for something like what, 1600 USD?
That's yeah. That sounds about right.
So it's not cheap.
No.
But with these, if they release as they should, you'd effectively have a GPU-esque attachment that would effectively serve like an M.2 in a way,
Oh goodness.
and it would be specifically for running an AI, and you'd be able to get like the same output as a much higher end GPU for significantly less of a cost,
That's incredible.
since all the extra parts are kind of removed, right?
Yeah. No, it's like
Um,
Kurzweil's law and Moore's law at work here. Everything's getting getting faster, more efficient, and yeah, it's also getting cheaper at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you're gonna have that kind of system and you're specifically trying to get that right,
Hmm.
why have something that's made for everything else when you can double down on that one thing you're trying to do while also saving money in the process?
Yeah, it was sort of like how the crypto bros were buying up in mass quantities graphics cards and turning those into farms to mine cryptocurrency. Now
Yes.
the next big use for a general concept like that would be to house an AI of some kind. The actual higher level of consciousness to slot in and run in tandem with your CPU, which has long since been considered the brain of a computer. Um, no, that's fascinating. I have to
Well,
wonder
yeah,
though.
and essentially the interesting applications of that would be, faster things like
Yes.
chat bots and stuff like that running at significantly more efficient speeds.
Oh yes, yes. Almost eliminating some of the delays that we have to deal with the services that we use, like Blurb and TTS and everything else on our live streams. That's I mean, I'm thinking in terms of how it would be applied to a streamer, a content creator, but
Yes.
no, with something like a Chat GPT like chatbot, the near instantaneous response whenever you put something in, because it still takes at least well, I mean, it's fairly fast now. I mean, it probably
Oh yeah,
takes
of course, but it takes up a lot of resources. Like when you think of like,
right.
for
That
example,
comes at a
like let's say
cost.
other like let's say AI VTubers, like let's say um you know what's their name?
Well, there's Vedal and
Yes, exactly. Yes,
his little VTuber that he
Vidal,
has created.
as he
Yeah,
calls himself.
Vedal.
Um,
Sorry.
but like you have like really complicated AI structures, right? Like Neuro is,
Yeah, Neuro
and
Sama.
and that is not easy to run on your PC.
Oh God, no.
That chugs GPU processing
I can't imagine what his setup is
and
like.
RAM. Like the amount of RAM you need to and GPU space you need to run something like that
Yeah,
is wild.
yeah.
But
Probably
now
64 128 would not cut it.
probably not. No, not with something that efficient, especially.
Yeah, and that's the fastest that we have on the market at this point.
Hmm.
Not
So
unless you want to
imagine
string
if you're
several
able
together.
to get something with the processing power of a 4090, let's say, right? And
Yeah.
condense it into the space of an M.2 um, for a quarter the price. So now you can technically multi-process, right? Or have your an actual designated GPU on top of this specialized addition.
hmm
Um, so you effectively have double the processing power to
An
run this AI.
AIPU, which that we may have just coined a term there, the AIPU.
Essentially, yeah,
Which,
in a
if you
way.
hear that later on, everybody, you heard it here on the Lord Rexworth podcast. You heard it here first. Um, all right, yeah. Uh, Kind of drilling down more specifically to the world of VTubing and content creation. I mean, we've talked about AI possibilities near limitless with that whole thing, whole can of worms. I In the world of VTubing and content creation, new developments in tech on that. Have you seen anything? Do you anticipate anything coming on the horizon for 2024,
Um,
maybe even beyond?
in terms of actual technology, not too much has changed, or at least I haven't noticed anything specific that have been coming up regarding that.
Okay.
We are quite at a peak in terms of processing when you account for things like the AR tracking kit on iPhones along with
Yes.
vBridger. That's currently like the best you can currently get
Hmm.
from like a personal standpoint, right? Like as a non-commercial entity, the
Right.
best thing you could probably get your hands on is that.
Well, and I suppose it's one of those things where it can be hard to spot a trend or anything like that because so much of what we deal with in VTubing and in a more general content creation is that incremental improvements over time. To where you
Hmm.
don't really notice it until it has been implemented. Then you kind of take a look back a year or 2 years previously, and then you sort of start to notice of, my goodness, we have come far, haven't we? It's almost imperceptible. But I don't know. I am noticing some things that I think could we could start to see more of. I know that they exist, um, but it's a matter of those sort of coming into the popular zeitgeist and more people taking notice and more people implementing them. Like I don't know if anybody else has seen this, but Iron Mouse, who is probably one of the most mainstream of VTubers now, and the kind of Kamiyoshi of a lot of other VTubers, now has this new form of animation, which I don't know if she has to have a toggle for it or if it's just something that's triggered by her range of motion, but she now has the ability to lean in or make the
Oh
appearance
yes,
of her model leaning
I've
in.
I've actually seen that being popularized before even Iron Mouse has done it. I've seen a lot of other more indie VTubers using that,
Okay.
and it's actually a specific type of rigging
Oh,
done for your model beforehand. Yes, so in VTube Studio, which is a program that pretty much every VTuber outside of the corpo VTubers who have their own specific like corporate programs
hmm.
use, right?
Right. Which we're
Um,
using that right now for the video portion of this
exactly.
podcast.
Yes.
Yes.
VTube Studio has multiple different parameters that can be set and that tie in with the live 2D rigging. And one of those is actually it's actually built and it always has been built for X, Y, and Z scaling. X being, of course, left to right, and
Hmm.
Y being up and down. But there's always been a setting for Z, which is forward and backwards.
Okay. So the Z scale adds
Um,
that third dimension to it.
it does, and it's been rather difficult, I guess, to figure out, or maybe people just never thought of using it up until
Right.
recently, where people have been requesting, or riggers have been starting to mess around with having VTuber models in the third dimension, where they can lean forward and backwards as well as up and down, left to right.
More challenging than people might think, given the fact that I mean, you and I, we are utilizing two-dimensional models. We look
Mm.
like characters from an anime, and that can be quite difficult to sort of scale and rig that properly to where you and I could, do something like lean in and, whisper sweet
Oh
things into
yes,
chat's ear.
I can only imagine how complicated the deformers, in order to get rigging like that, um, have to be set up. Like how intricate the rigging must be to actually have that working.
Yeah, tourbillon watches have nothing on the amount of complexity that can go into rigging a VTuber model.
Yes, like because I know before the Z scaling was a thing, the most complicated thing I've seen with a lot of VTubers was the bridger rigging for like face tracking.
Mm.
Um,
And that's the
which
more expressive type of.
it is, yes.
Okay.
It was, I think originally it was originally popularized by Girl DM actually. She was, I think, one of the first VTubers to really utilize that,
Yeah, she's
along
always
with
been on the
the
cutting edge like that, hasn't she?
yes. Well, she was. I think she was the first VTuber to utilize that alongside the AR tracking kit,
Okay.
and like in the time when she had just started with that, like the tracking was like, wow. You'd look at any other VTuber and then you'd look at her tracking, and it's like uncannily human-like.
Yes. It
Um,
almost frightening in some ways.
and it really lends to like models where you don't even really need emotion toggles because just the way it like presents emotion in like its in like its mouth movements and stuff like that, just
Yeah.
you don't really need it.
Yeah. So I mean, the baseline emotional expressions will still need to be
Of
drawn
course, yes.
and rigged to a
Like
certain
stuff like
extent.
crying and everything, of course, but
But
like in
now
terms of
it's
like the actual like facial movements and stuff like that, it just becomes so much more human-like.
Yeah, easier for you to sort of give those facial triggers so the program will recognize, and then we'll start to, if you want to show that you're laughing or that you're crying or that you're angry, um, you just sort of make the face, and then it
It
just
does
does
it
it for you.
exactly.
Yeah,
No additional button presses or anything needed.
yeah. I do notice, and correct me if I'm wrong, and just to preface this question, Nobu, you've got V Bridger coming up with your next model that's debuting soon. Is that right?
I do indeed. Yes.
Okay. So, and well, maybe you can speak to this then. Have you found that this the frightened eyes or the scared eyes, where the irises and everything just kind of shrink down to indicate fright? Have you noticed that that gets triggered fairly easily with your model?
It does, but like it always triggers in the way that's relevant to like the current facial, like what I'm actually doing with my face. It's like it's very accurate to my own actual facial movements.
Okay.
So it's not like it doesn't, like, even when the eyes shrink down, like depending on the mouth movements and just everything else that's going on with the face, it doesn't necessarily convey shock or fear. It could just be excitement, let's say, or
Yeah, no, that's okay.
yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. Um, I You don't have to answer this question if you're not comfortable with it, but I mean, I myself personally, IRL, I wear glasses to correct for nearsightedness. Um, are are these sort of is this sort of tracking getting better at being able to get a better read on people who wear glasses or some type of
Unfortunately, I think in even in the 3 years we've had this technology at this point, no,
No,
it really hasn't.
Sag. All right. Well,
Yeah, I've yet to see any improvement on glasses related tracking. Unfortunately, I think it comes down to the fact that the lenses of the glasses refract light into the camera,
yeah, no, that's
and that
true.
messes with the tracking. It has nothing to do with a technical standpoint. It's purely a hardware limitation.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I've noticed that with my current model, um, difficult to get an accurate blink whenever I blink my eyes, especially when I'm staring right at the camera. Just the best that VTube Studio can do is just sort of jolt my eyes just a little bit, but that if I'm zoomed in close enough, it looks rather unnerving. But then, like I'm looking at you, I've got Streamlabs off at an angle here, and so I'm able to look, and then camera's able to pick that up fairly well. But yeah, definitely one of those things I don't want to turn off the sync of both eyes, otherwise it'll look like I'm incessantly winking at you. That's fine.
Yeah, I've noticed that's a significant problem with anyone wearing glasses. And it's funny how we haven't fixed that in so long. But no,
Yeah.
there's been no applicable solution for that yet.
No, I guess I'm gonna have to save my pennies and get that laser surgery before long here.
Yeah, I think I know a lot of people who've had that problem have switched over to contacts.
Hmm. Yeah, I may have to adjust to that too. It's been ages since I've wore contacts. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
It's
just so much
it's
easier to wear glasses. They irritate
I
your
can
eyes so
imagine, yeah,
much.
getting those like little contacts actually in your eye, and
Yeah, especially if they fold the wrong way, or if yeah, it can be a bit of a hassle. Um, all right. Let's see. I know. Phew. I guess we can go ahead and move on to the type of content. Um, Gazing into the crystal ball, as it were, into 2024. One particular thing, and I'd love to get your opinion on this. What sorts of content, especially the underutilized forms of content, the non-video game based content more specifically, do you see VTubers possibly shifting their focus to this year?
I've noticed a trend with a lot of ASMR streamers.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but people just like ASMR. I think
Hmm.
it's just something I've noticed.
Do you see that
Um,
working with a particular outlet, like say Twitch versus YouTube, or vice
um,
versa?
no, actually, I've seen them both work equally on either platform. It's just a
Okay.
question of how you apply it, right? I
Hmm.
mean, an ASMR live stream is going to function significantly differently than just a pre-recorded ASMR video you're going to drop on YouTube.
Okay. All right. Any particular types of ASMR that you're seeing really, really popping off?
Nothing specific. Everything's been kind of generic.
Okay.
Um,
I suppose in the coming years we'll start to see a clear winner emerge, especially end of 2024, maybe going into the next couple of years.
but
Um,
yeah, I'd say in terms of actually like what content to do, the best thing is to just see what you like doing
yes.
and do some market research. Look up other videos, other streamers that are doing the same thing as you, right? Go on to Twitter, go on to YouTube, go on to Twitch, and type in what you want to do, and
Yeah.
see, is it oversaturated? Are there hundreds of other people doing exactly what you're doing, or can you spot a gap in the market, something that people have not done yet that you can maybe pull off yourself?
Yeah. Even if it's something that's just, on a whimsy, it sounds, oh, well, that's rather interesting. That could be fun. Well, then, by all means, take that, grab that thread, and run with it. Is I think would be both of our encouragement to anybody. Is dive deeper into that and do your homework, and yeah, but run with it. Just lean into it. Um, Now, shifting over to video games and video game based content, what sort of games do you see popping off for 2024? I mean, I know we've got one in particular that's kind of an easy one to put out there on the table, and that's Power World.
Yes, Power World. Obviously, no one anticipated Lethal Company being as popular as it would be, but here we are.
The hot game of
Um,
the winter season, it would seem. Yeah.
but yeah, there's quite a few games coming out this year, and I guess sometimes it's hard to see exactly which ones are going to pop off
Hmm.
hard. Um, but it depends though, right? Because like you can kind of get ideas with how popular certain media is already if a game is going to pop off as hard as it will.
Okay.
Like I know we're actually getting. I haven't seen much about it, but I know we're getting a new Toho game in February.
All right. And for people unfamiliar with the Toho games, what give us like a brief
No,
rundown of what those are.
they're effectively bullet hell games, so they're very much like all about trying to get. Well, it's just your screen is filled with pellets. Yeah, bullet hell anime girls is probably the best way to describe it.
Okay. Something with waifus. All right. I can definitely see the potential there. So basically anything else that they come up and they slap some waifus in there, they probably got themselves an easy win.
Oh yes, of course.
All right. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, as you do.
but yeah, and
Um,
then a bunch of other stuff is also coming out. Who knows, right?
yeah. I think we're due for another and like two entries in the Yakuza Like a Dragon series. One in
Yes.
particular that continues on the story of Kazuma Kiryu, just when you thought that they had wrapped up that entire story arc in Yakuza 6, they found a way to keep it going. And then they've also got the one that's, what is it called? The Infinite Wealth Hack, which features the new protagonist that they had in Like a Dragon.
Yes. I'm excited to see that. I actually I never had a chance to actually play through the full series yet. I've only ever seen like gameplay from other people,
Hmm.
but I really want to actually go through that at one point.
Oh, it's so good.
It looks like such a fun franchise to play through,
I'm aging
especially with all the
myself a
new
bit
content
here.
that's coming out.
Right. I'm aging myself a bit here, but everybody knows I'm not exactly a spring chicken here. They the I don't know if you remember an old series called Shenmue.
The name rings a bell.
It started out on the Dreamcast. It was actually originally the prototype was developed for the Sega Saturn. It was meant to be an RPG version of Virtua Fighter, and then that morphed into its own original story. Um, First two volumes came out on Dreamcast, later ported over to Xbox. PS4, PS5, Steam and Epic got HD remasters, or sort of HD adaptations. And then we recently got, in like the past 5 or so years, Shenmue 3 and some DLC for that. But for so long, there was such a gap, and it became kind of a cult favorite. And but a lot of people within like the Sega fanboy and fangirl community um, really started to regard the Yakuza series as the spiritual successor to Shenmue, because so much of what you can do in Yakuza, you go back and you play the old Shenmue games, and the similarities are quite striking. It's a bit rougher, a bit more clunky in the Shenmue games in comparison to what you can do in Yakuza, but it's that very similar kind of aesthetic and experience of the fully reactive eyes entertainment. That's best way to describe what's going on with Yakuza and also with Shenmue. That's the way Yu Suzuki described it, was the acronym of free. And it's not quite an RPG, not everything that you would see in a traditional action title, but sort of blended together to tell this fully immersive story and experience. And I mean, everything's set in Japan, so it's so much fun. Except with the Infinite Wealth game that's coming up. That's supposed to be taking place, at least in part, in America. I think in Hawaii, possibly.
Oh,
We'll see on that. But yes, our chat is emphatic here that you must stop playing the Yakuza series. So there's one of your New Year's resolutions for 2024.
it's funny. It's funny. I own I think 3 or 4 of the entries. I have them in my Steam library. I've never opened them, and I keep telling myself I need to play them. So you know what? Maybe that'll be on the lineup for 2024.
It's fair though, because it is quite the time commitment. You can get so immersed in it that some of the mini games and side quests are just they are almost games in and of themselves. Especially when you get into like the host and hostess club management arc of certain games, like I think Yakuza 0, Yakuza Kiwami 2 has that as well. That in and of itself can just stretch on so much that it is a game within a game. But so good, so incredibly good. You are in for an absolute treat. A friend of ours is mutual friend of ours, last resort, saying I'm going to start reminding him on Discord to play Yakuza from now on. So you can't escape it, Nobu. You're kind of committed by everybody else.
It'll be on the list. Well, it'll be on the list for post debut, I believe. I think.
There you go.
I think that could be fun.
Yeah, that's a way. Yeah, so there's another resolution, New Year's resolution for 2024 is you got to play through Yakuza. You got to play through the Like a Dragon series. But no, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, as far as other games, I mean, I don't know. There's just so many. I would say
there really is. Yeah.
Yeah, and what we see, I mean, yeah, there's some good entries from studios, but I think safe. I think it's a safe prediction that for 2024 we're going to see more more independent studios releasing their own titles to tremendous success. I think fairly safe prediction there. A bit broad, but
Yes.
yeah. We'll. I mean, so many of the games that we've enjoyed success on with our streams, with our collabs, have been these independent titles. Well, I mean, just take the most obvious example: Lethal Company. It's a bit of an older title, but that's qualifies as an indie game, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
and it's kind of crazy because it's was made by one person, and who would have thought that a random indie game made by a single person would outsell Call of Duty?
That's absolutely that's nutter. That's
It's absolutely
absolutely
crazy when you think
bonkers.
about it.
Yeah,
A triple A title made by one of the largest gaming companies out there currently
and it
was
can't beat
outsold
Yeah,
by a random indie game made by a single person.
but I don't think it's not necessarily the first time because we've also seen it similar story with Five Nights at Freddy's, and now that's being made into a major Hollywood motion picture.
Yes, who I can highly assume that the creator of the entire franchise probably had no intentions that his franchise would end up growing this big.
Yeah, but
But
I'm
here we are
not
years
complaining
later,
either. He's
and
just cashing the
I doubt
checks
he's
and enjoying
complaining.
himself. Yeah. Our chat pointing out that it's possible later on that what you make after that wouldn't be nearly as popular. I mean, that's always the risk you take. Reminded of Orson Welles, that great radio broadcaster and filmmaker. His first big film was Citizen Kane, and somebody even warned him that he'd best quit the business because he would never be able to top it. And he stuck with it, and unfortunately, that turned out to be a bit of a prophecy because everything else that came afterward, even great films like Touch of Evil, The Magnificent Ambersons, never quite able to top what he was able to accomplish with Citizen Kane and just the epic level that of what that film achieved. Um, so yeah, I mean that's always creative risk, but gosh, what a splash, what a legacy for the creator of Lethal Company. Even if they do nothing else, um, they have that, and just
Admittedly,
yeah, and just the
if they
hours.
outsold Call of Duty, just think about how much money that actually is just off and like there's no dividing it, right? You're one
Right,
person
no,
crew. Like
yeah,
like with games like Call of Duty, right? You have teams of like hundreds of people.
hmm
And you have to divide that money, no matter how unequally, right? With how corporate structures are made, no matter
sure,
how unequally the money is divided, it needs to be divided.
hmm
Um, there is when it comes to Lethal Company, there isn't really any equality in the division. There is perfect equality in the division of money, actually, I should say, because there's
right,
only one person it needs to go to.
yeah, yeah, roughly, and I guess any other additional people they had to hire for relief. I mean, there was always that possibility, but I mean,
But
yeah,
yeah,
the safe to say it was a small crew at most, and at the very least, just one person developing that. Um, yeah, that's a lot of cash. That's a lot of royalties
so long as
going
they
to.
maintain that one game, it is safe to say they're pretty much set for life. Yeah.
Yes, yes, safe to say that they are indeed set for life. And then, of course, there's also the intangible benefits that you just can't put a price on of the hours upon hours of fun and free advertising that VTubers like us have given games like Lethal Company.
Absolutely. When you
Yeah.
create it's like that's the one wondrous thing about the internet and just live streaming in general.
hmm
When you've created a game that people like and streamers will go out of their way to stream, especially once you get them in the hands of the bigger streamers,
Yeah.
you've basically set yourself.
Yeah. It's the best form of advertisement is is that is getting streamers and VTubers to play your game. I mean, it just yeah, it's all gravy from there. Um, yeah, it's just fun. I mean, I can't tell you. It's just that in and of itself as a category on Twitch has has become so incredibly saturated.
Oh
So
yeah,
many
I think
people.
how many people are currently streaming just Lethal Company alone right now? I think
Um,
oh yeah.
let's look. I mean, we're taping this on a Sunday afternoon. Let me look up here.
Um in
Uh,
terms of viewers, I think there's currently 70,000 people just
yeah,
watching Lethal Company streams on
yeah,
a
nearly
Sunday afternoon.
70,000 viewers, over 170,000 followers of that particular tag, and yeah, a rough average of about anywhere between 5 to 5.7, 5 or 6 viewers on average with each stream, just on Twitch. Um, yeah, incredible, absolutely incredible. So, and it's one of those that if you are a new streamer and you are trying to build a following and trying to get to Twitch affiliate, I mean, there's an easy win for you. That is just stream Lethal Company. Get a couple of friends together who are also streamers, or just friends who want to play the game, and get to streaming and stream your gameplay and just have a good time together. Yeah, I mean, it really sounds a bit cliched, but there's a lot of truth to it.
I will say, actually, when it comes to the Twitch algorithm, it's a little bit special. Typically speaking, you want to try streaming games around the 10 to 20k viewer range, because they're usually they're saturated with viewers, but usually not as saturated with other streamers.
Right. Okay. So they're not. It's not having to divide.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because the problem is Twitch actively penalizes you for having a lower number of viewers, right? So like, if I have 10 viewers on my stream, it's going to put me up in like the top of the category, maybe, like the top 10 rows, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I have 0, it's going to put me somewhere in like the thousands and thousands of rows below that.
Wow.
Or even hundreds of rows, right?
Yeah.
So like, people actively have to scroll to find you.
Yeah, and they're not going to do that realistically. Most of them won't, anyway.
Most people will look at like the first page and pick something interesting from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. So no, good advice all around. And I think on that note, that's a fairly good broad-based view that we've done of what we've seen developing and what we're expecting in 2024, and we're also at about the roughly the hour and a half mark. So Nobu, you hereby take the record as the guest that I've spent the most time with, and created the longest episode of the Lord Rexworth podcast. So yeah, there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me here. Everybody, if you go to twitter.com and search up Nobuyuki Volpa, at Nobuyuki Volpa, all one word there. We'll also have all of the links to Nobu's socials and Twitch page and everything else in the show description here. So please go give him a follow. Nobu, my friend, my colleague, thank you so much for joining me here and for this conversation. It was a lot of fun. And quite an honor to have you. Of course,
the pleasure was all mine. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and as my first guest too. It's this is wonderful. This was quite wonderful. Thank you. This is exactly what I've been aiming for with these types of conversations and having guests on. And yes, I think you've set a fantastic bar for everyone else. So thank you. And with that, we will go ahead and close out the program here. Thank you all so much for joining me on this episode of the Lord Rexworth Podcast. I do hope our discussion today has ignited your curiosity, sparked your inspiration, and even provided a moment of relaxation. So to stay connected with the podcast here and access additional content, be sure to visit my website, lordrexworth.com. That's lordrexworth.com, and follow me across all platforms there, lordrexworth.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Your support fuels our journey to continue bringing you engaging conversations and soothing ASMR experiences as well. And as we conclude today's episode, remember, your mind, your spirit are both powerful forces, and we encourage you to embrace the positive energy that you've gained here. Until next time, take a moment for yourself, stay inspired, and continue exploring the boundless possibilities that life has to offer. Visit lordrexworth.com to be a part of our growing community. Thank you for being with us on the Lord Rexworth Podcast.